Okay, welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. I'm Katya, and in today's video, I have back, of course, my special guest and mentor, Dr. Santhip Kanholy. Thank you so much for joining me again. We're so lucky to have you. And today's bittersweet because today is the last Graha in our series. This is our Ketu video, so Ketu through the Nakshatras, and this will conclude this series, although there will be more in the future. Ketu, of course, is the south node of the moon and represents the body of the serpent without the head. So it represents the spiritual ego. It's the spiritual martyr who gives without thinking because he doesn't have a head. And he loses his head with rage like a religious fanatic because he doesn't have a head. He's also associated with Mars. And in a chart, it shows our past lives and things that are already familiar to us. Now, that doesn't mean that we've mastered those things. It just means that it's familiar territory. And it represents the wound in a chart in Vedic astrology. Whereas in Western astrology, the comet Chiron is the wounded healer. We don't really use a lot of comets. So the wound would be represented by Ketu because it's something from the past, something representing loss and surrender. It's something we have to surrender to. We can't fight with it. Rahu's what we're here to do. And they say, Jyoti says, Rahu brings you into this life and Ketu takes you out. So it's a very important point. And actually, this is the planet that brought me into Vedic astrology because I kept asking my Western astrology teachers, well, how do I find out about past lives in my chart? And they say, oh, well, that's the nodes. And you have to study Vedic astrology to understand that. So that sent me directly here. So for me, this is the part of Vedic astrology that really tells us the shadow side of our soul and things that we haven't considered in Western astrology. So with that, I will give the floor to Santhip.
Great introduction, Katya, on Ketu. You couldn't have mentioned it better. Definitely, Ketu is actually the planet connected with past lives, no doubt about that. It is almost like the planet that is capable of handling extra temporal forces. That's the best way I can find that. So temporal forces can mean past lives, past dimensions, energetic dimensions, and so forth. So definitely there is a lot of huge spiritual potential with this planet, with Ketu. No doubt about that. It is actually called as the Mokshakarka because of that. The planet that is capable of taking you away or giving you moksha or making you free of this earth plane, which we are all in, right? So Ketu is definitely one very good and a very important planet in all our charts because one way or the other, we are all here in this earth plane to attain moksha. That's at least what the sages say. So let's see. So again, I want to remind all the audience so far what you've done in this series. What I've basically introduced again is this idea of studying this planet through its nakshatras, through the nakshatras linked to that same planet. We went through a couple of planets. We went through see how the exaltation, debilitation, mool, trikon, nakshatras of that particular planet are very important with respect to that original planet. We saw how energetically those 3 points are extremely important ways to characterize the way that planetary energies would evolve in a chart. That's the first thing which I shared in many of the personations. Then further on, I shared how a sign owned by that particular planet and the nakshatras falling in that sign is also capable, of describing the planetary energies. And, you only have to have the eyes to look for it. And then you can begin to see how the same nakshatras are also playing out. So that's been a fundamental way to approach the planet that I attempted to try in the series, trying to give a new lens to identify the planets and their corresponding energies and so forth, and these same nakshatras become very important when you're analyzing that particular planet as well. So when you are going through this particular planetary time period, or say you're going through Ketu Dasha or any Sun Dasha, what were the previous points of analysis, which are what all points are introduced, you'll begin to see they are becoming very important. That's one way or the other, you know. So great. So I'll actually share my screen and we'll have this concluding journey with regard to Ketu. Let's see. So it should be shared. Let's see. So here, first slide I have is that of Ketu. Basically the summary of all the nakshatras that you could possibly link with Ketu. So one aspect here is that you can see Ketu is the ruler of Scorpio. And the nakshatras falling in Scorpio are Vishaka, Pada 4, Anuradha, and Jyeshta. So these three nakshatras can actually have a direct energy of Ketu. So that is one way to start to think about Ketu. You know, so whenever you have any planet here, of course, Scorpio is ruled by both Mars and Ketu. So, but specifically, you can start to think more about the effect of Ketu, especially with these three nakshatras, Vishaka, Anuradha, and Jyeshta as well. Now, the remember that Ketu itself is the ruler of three other nakshatras as well, which is Ashwini, Magha, and Mula nakshatra. They are ruled by Ketu in the Vimshotri Dasha scheme. I think we discussed about that before also. How the Vimshotri Dasha scheme is also a very valid way to study these nakshatras as well. So that's one aspect there. So Ashwini, Magha, and Mula is definitely other places how the other nakshatra you should be analyzing when you're studying Ketu or analyzing Ketu as well. That is one the next thing. Now, the more interesting thing about Ketu is this bit about its exaltation, debilitation, and Multragon point. Now, there are various astrological schools of thought with regard to exaltation, Multragon, and debilitation of Ketu and Rahu. We mentioned about that in last session with on Rahu, how there are various schools of thought. Now, the school of thought here, I'm actually going to use is that Ketu is actually exalted in Scorpio or in the Jyeshta nakshatra. Specifically at 20 degrees of Scorpio is where Ketu is getting exalted. It is getting debilitated in 20 degrees in Taurus and in Rohini, close to a point of Rohini nakshatra at 20 degrees of Taurus. And Ketu's Mool Trikon is actually falling in Capricorn. Now, one way to think about Capricorn is Capricorn is the sign where Mars is getting exalted. And remember, Ketu is the higher octave of Mars. So it kind of makes sense that Ketu could have something fundamental going on with Capricorn. So it's an interesting way to think about it. But let's see, let's look at these points further. Now, what is very interesting and more important about the Ketu ruled nakshatras or Ashwini, Magha, and Mula is that there is a lot of action happening in these nakshatras. In fact, Ashwini is a nakshatra where Sun is getting exalted. Mula, well, Magha is a nakshatra where Sun is having its Mul Trikon. So that's a very important thing. We already mentioned about these two nakshatras, but they are very important points to analyze with regard to the Sun in the chart. And then Mars is actually having its Mul Trikon in Ashwini nakshatra. You can actually see that. You know, Mars is actually having a direct invisible influence with planets that are placed in Ashwini nakshatra as well. Specifically, I'm inclined to say the degrees of maybe 3 to 10 degrees or something like that. That's the Mul Trikon range, if I'm not mistaken, for Mars. And then Mula nakshatra is actually the Mul Trikon of Jupiter. You know, so Jupiter is actually having its Mul Trikon in Mula nakshatra. Now, in fact, in Nadi astrology, the Mul Trikon sign of Jupiter is actually considered as an alternate ascendant. In Nadi astrology, instead of reading the chart from Aries as the Lagna, you basically read the chart from Sagittarius as the ascendant, because Jupiter being the Jiva Karaka, and that's the whole system. You know, in fact, you can make Sagittarius as an alternate ascendant and read the whole chart, and you will still get very interesting insights. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's an Nadi astrology thing, because for them, Jupiter is a very important planet for them. In fact, Jupiter is made as the ascendant to read the chart also. But having said so, you can see all the action is happening in the Ketu nakshatra of Ashwini, Magha, and Mula. So these three nakshatras are definitely having very strong planetary influences. Now, any planets you have in these nakshatras, Ashwini, Magha, or Mula, these planetary influences will definitely be playing out. These corresponding planetary influences will definitely be playing out. So you'll have to analyze these planets in your chart in addition to that planets also. So one way or the other, there will be an influence of these playing out also. It's a very important thing to recognize. Now, let's see. So moving forward, yeah, remember exaltation is basically like the planet is in a 5-star resort of sorts, and Mool Trikon is basically its head office. So the planet feels very comfortable in the Mool Trikon sign. So there are very fiery planets. Sun and Mars are very fiery, and of course Ketu is a very fiery planet also. So a lot of fiery planets are very strong in Ketu nakshatra also. So it's something interesting just to be aware about. Now these three, the deities corresponding to them now are very, very interesting for them. You can see Ashwini Kumars are the actual healers, are the actual celestial healers. In fact, Ashwini Nakshatra is capable of giving you very powerful miracles. And it is very true. It's almost like you have divine help, with your, whenever you have a planet placed in Ashwini Nakshatra. Usually these natives do have karma with emergencies, but one way or the other, they are able to resolve their emergencies, and because which they might be able to help others with their emergencies also, which is one thing that seems to happen. But Ashwini Kumars are the celestial physicians, and they supposedly learn the secrets of immortality. That's why they are keepers of Amrit, as it's called. So the Amrit, the elixir of immortality. So they do know the secret of that, and there is this very powerful healing capacity, healing ability in Ashwini Kumar's ruling Ashwini Nakshatra. So it's a very, very powerful placement here. Remember, this is a point where Sun, the planet of vitality, is getting exalted. In the last slide, I just introduced that. Now, in Sun's Mool Trikon point in Magha Nakshatra, you actually have the rulership of the Pitris or the mains or the ancestors. So many times in my readings, whenever I've seen any planet here, you mentioned about past lives in the beginning, Katya. So I've seen any planet here in Magha Nakshatra literally translates to you have some karma is being worked out from your past life with this particular planet. One way or the other, there is a past life kind of deed that you are trying to clear and so forth. And in fact, the solution is to connect with your ancestors and to heal your ancestors. That's a very important thing. Now, the easiest way to improve that is to simply have an ancestral altar, honor your ancestors, give offerings to them, give the offerings of the elements, which is what most of the cultures world over have one way or the other, some kind of ancestral offering kind of thing. And I cannot say that enough. It's a very, very powerful practice. The people who are planets here in Magha Nakshatra are the ones who will immediately feel the impact. The moment they have an ancestral altar, the moment they begin to honor their grandparents, the deceased ancestors, the moment they begin to actually
saints from their line. Yeah,
definitely saints of their lineage, family saints, for instance, patron saints worshipped by the family. The moment when they begin to honor the traditions, their ancestral traditions, that's when really a lot of blessings come with. That's something I've seen. So that's a real true thing with Pitris and man's ruling Magha Nakshatra. I cannot say that enough, because many times I've seen that these natives do carry royal blood. One way or the other, they carry royal blood. It's very true.
And it's important that you give what the ancestor wants.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about what you want. So if the ancestor smokes cigarettes, well, by God, you better put cigarettes on the altar, It's about honoring, at least in voodoo culture, in hoodoo, which comes from Africa and wound up in Caribbean. When you're honoring the ancestors, it's about giving them what they liked when they were here.
Yeah, Exactly that. So you'll see that different cultures have different ways to do that. Some cultures they do offer cigarette, they do offer alcohol, cigars. I mean all that. And also, if your ancestor liked a good, your grandfather or your father even liked a good steak, that's what you actually make an offer. That kind of thing. So it is true. It's one of the very powerful factors that I've seen that I can definitely say is very, very powerful. No matter what, if you have a regular ancestral offering or you do the ritual in your tradition that is linked with offering the ancestors or honoring the ancestors, that's something I've seen. It's extremely powerful. Now, the next nakshatra is that of Mula, which is actually ruled by Naruti. Now, Naruti as a word is very interesting because it translates to Neruti, destroyer of Ruti. That translates to destroyer of the rhythm of the universe, the cosmic rhythm, the cosmic law. So you begin to see with Naruti, there is this very strong aspect of creating something new, coming out of creating a chaos element. This is a real wild woman archetype here, wild goddess archetype here in Mula Nakshatra. So in many cases, this is a pure chaos energy. But even this Mula Nakshatra is also carrying a very pure energy of origin and creation and so forth. In fact, exactly at the middle of every galaxy, you have a black hole. Mula Nakshatra is literally like the black hole that is sustaining the entire galaxy. That's a way to think about that. So it's a very, very powerful asterism and carrying a lot of very ancient power, ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom. So the wisdom here is very, very ancient. Sometimes even beyond the wisdom or the rhythm or the laws of the universe. So before solar systems and planets were there, you still had black hole, right? So there is a very ancient kind of wisdom that these natives are able to tap into. So it's a very so here these three nakshatra you can clearly see some very powerful healing abilities. Extremely strong for spiritual power. I cannot say that enough. Like I've seen these natives will have one way or the other some sort of spiritual gifts. It's a very good chance that if you have a planet in any of these nakshatras, 100% you have done this work in the past lifetime as well. That's also the other aspect. Either if you're into occult sciences, even if you're into like healing sciences, you'll begin to see that it's an extremely powerful place to have. And I've seen in Magha Nakshatra most, when you begin to honor your ancestors, that it helps you out the most. But then with the other two nakshatras also, you can actually get a lot of energetic blockages removed when you begin to honor your ancestors. Now, what is actually happening is that in many cases with these nakshatras, the ancestors' trauma is passed down through generations. So recent studies have shown that there is an actual component of genetic trauma. Trauma can be genetic. So your ancestors might have suffered something. The same bit, the same memory is still there within your genes. So ancestral healing or healing that aspect of your ancestors is very, very important. So it might require you to honor your ancestors. It might require to honor your past. It might require to directly confront the suffering which your ancestors went through. Now, for some people, it can be huge. It can be like the entire historical epoch. There might have been a time period of slavery for some people. Yeah, go ahead, Katya.
Can I say something? Going back to the idea of the wound, if you think about wound care in healing, dealing with an emotional wound, whether it be ancestral or in this life for you, it's just like a wound. You can't pick at it or it's never going to heal. What you have to do is you have to treat it, right? You have to put the antibiotic cream on it, Band-Aid on it. Don't touch it. Don't pick it for a while. Let it heal, right? You come back to it later. You take off the Band-Aid. You let it open to air. You leave it alone for a while. All right. I mean, you're here to do Rahu. They say Rahu is such a malefic, but I mean, that's what you're here to do. So it's like this, it's this dance between, okay, I'm going to focus on Rahu and then I'm going to go back to Ketu and I'm going to lick my wounds for a while. And then I'm going to go back to Rahu and I'm going to do what I'm here to do. And then I'm going to come back here. And so it's this constant back and forth. And I think that's where people need to understand Ketu, is that the healing process is very much a rhythm, and it's very much, this back and forth. And so you can't just focus on K2 all the time, because then you're just picking at it constantly and it doesn't heal.
Yeah, well, very well said. Ketu will force you to heal. That's what is going to happen. So many times healing would also require isolation, spending time alone, that kind of thing. So usually when you go through Ketu time period, or if planets are placed in Ketu and ruled nakshatras, this is an effect. You will be confronting the force of healing. That's the other aspect. So it's a very important aspect to recognize the real nature of healing. Ketu can actually make you understand that in a very harsh way. In fact, there are some astrologers out there who believe Ketu is the worst malefic. He believes that. So in many ways,
It's
if you
Ganesh's
understand Ketu,
nakshatra, right? Ganesh is
exactly that.
associated.
Yeah.
How could it be that bad? Ganesh is the best.
Exactly that, right? So Ganesh is the best, but then you really need to understand the energies of Ketu. If not, you might feel like it is definitely a worse malefic. It is what it is. Let's see. Now, I mentioned about looking at the VIP nakshatras aspect, in which you are examining the exaltation point and the debilitation point. Now, remember, there are various schools of thought here. Now, the school of thought here, which I mentioned slightly earlier on, is where Ketu is getting exalted. Ketu is getting debilitated in Rohini nakshatra, which is usually associated with luxury and ascension. So, which is giving you some clues. And Rohini is a very materialistic nakshatra. Nakshatra about creation, creating more into this earth plane and so forth. It's in falling in the earth sign of Taurus as well. It is getting exalted in Jyeshta nakshatra or in Scorpio sign in the nakshatra which is ruled by Indra. It's Indra is the one who is actually the supreme ruler of the devas, right? So you have the supreme emperor of the gods kind of aspect happening in Indra. But interestingly, Indra would definitely have a lot of occult powers also. So you'll begin to see planets, people with planets in Jyeshta, one way or the other, are already dabbling in occult sciences, one way or the other, for sure. I described about how the Multrikon sign of Ketu being Capricorn can also be seen. How the logic of Mars being exalted here is one way to think about Ketu having its influence in Capricorn sign.
Yeah.
Now, one easy way to understand Ketu is also Ketu is the flag that has been already conquered. So the army has already conquered the portion of the land, and finally the flag has been put. So that's the way. There's a fort there in Ketu. Whatever sign Ketu is sitting in your chart, it's almost like you have established a fort there. You're completely, the security is in place, all the security checks are in place. You can't penetrate the defenses very easily and so forth. So there's a big healing thing that can happen there. It's a very important thing to recognize also. There's a real deep opportunity for some real genuine healing to happen here. But at the same time,
the stars that go with both nakshatra have to do with war as well. Aldebaran for Rohini and Antares for Jyeshta. And so those were used historically to find out who would be the winner. Usually Aldebaran, if it was on the ascendant, was the winner. But if it was on the 7th house, for your opponent, then they would be the winner. So, and that has to do with war, Mars. Yeah,
that's very important point as well. So you can see Rohini Nakshatra natives do tend to be very combative about their possessiveness. That's one thing I've seen. So you could see that Martian element there. It is true. But having said so, Jyeshta is the eldest star of them all. So definitely there's going to be occult energies there. So which is what Ketu is about, a lot of occult secrets about. And there is a Martian aspect there as well, definitely. Ketu can be controlling in that way. Ketu can be like very Martian in that way, very rules, regulation, but in an intuitive kind of way. That's the other aspect. So now, what is interesting about Prajapati, the deity of Rohini, who's the equivalent of Brahma, is that he created the entire world. this is a very interesting thing to think about, interesting point to consider when you're considering the debilitation of Ketu. Now, Ketu is the world that you are creating. Now, Indra is the king of the world. Indra is the seat of power from which the entire gods, the entire devas are also ruled. So this is perfect analogy to understand um, the rules for attaining moksha, the rules for attaining enlightenment, which is what Jyotish used to be about. Now, Prajapati is the one who is creating an entire world. Once you create an entire world, which is the lowest point of Ketu, you become Indra, you become the ruler of the world. In many ways, our lives are the result of the worlds that we ourselves have created. At the end of the day, when we begin to realize that what worlds have we created out for ourselves, whether it be through our actions, through our words, through our thoughts, at that point is when real enlightenment begins. Have we created a world in which we have attained power, uh, or is it that our ego has been seated on the most powerful place in that world? Or is it that truth has taken a back step and so forth, right? So the moment when you realize that you have created your world, now this is an extremely deep esoteric thing. You can start off with just the physical actions. You can start off, eventually evolve that towards the mental plane with the emotional world which you have created and that you become the king of, and then you realize it's a world that you actually created. And then finally, you can elevate it to further to the intellectual plane and eventually to the spirit level also. When you reach the spirit level, you'll begin to see the world as a reflection of your own deep spirit. One way or the other, you'll begin to learn that. It's a very important, extremely important aspect to recognize, and it's a very subtle point even in the path of spirituality. Also, there are some spiritual masters who say the deeper you go within spirituality, the deeper you get closer to enlightenment, it is actually possible to create an entire world also. Worlds can be created, So in fact, they say when you normally they advise against getting stuck on third chakra, kind of third eye kind of thing a lot, because you have one more chakra above the third eye. Once you're at third eye, you begin to see worlds. This is the exact point which they were being referred to. You begin to see real worlds here and there. Creatures come, beings come, other dimensional creatures come, and it keeps on going. Worlds keep on creating. The moment when this world creation stops, that's the real point when you really connect with the deepest source. At that point, there is no more world, there is only source. Everything becomes part of you. That kind of thing happens. So there is no distinction, that separate distinction of you is no longer there. So it's one of the very interesting but subtle way to understand Ketu, very subtle way to understand deeper spiritual journey also. You can see that through the deities carried here in these nakshatras, Rohini being the creator of the universe, Prajapati, and Jyeshta being the ruler of the universe, who is Indra. Let's see. Now, Ketu is also connected with flags. Ketu is basically flag. So I mentioned earlier on the flag which the army has put it. That is basically Ketu. Now the actual flag is also connected with Ketu. Now right now, probably around the elections or so, a lot of people would have been handling the flags and whatnot. Right? It would have been a thing that recently. Now in temples and stuff, Ketu or the flag is a very very important thing. Now Ketu also denotes heights. Ketu is really the planet connected with tall people, people who are extremely, there's this karma, the heights usually with Ketu and so forth. So correspondingly, in temples, like this is the famous Jagannath Puri temple in Orissa. In that temple, you begin to see the chakra, the Sudarshan chakra. This is a temple for Lord Krishna, actually. Well, I believe it's Lord Vishnu. Well, it's Vishnu in here. But what is interesting is that you have the Sudarshan Chakra, Vishnu's weapon at the top, and even above that, you have a flag actually flying. So that's a very interesting thing to think about. It's one of those things. And especially if you're in India, if you attended any kind of festivals in temples and so forth, one of the first things that happens in temple festival is that they actually have a flag hoisting ceremony. Now, in the flag hoisting ceremony, you actually hoist the flag in the flagpole in every temple, and you can see already a lot of people are gathered here. The priests are hoisting a flag and so forth. And once this flag hoisting ceremony marks the beginning point of any important festivals and so forth. This is what happens, especially in a South Indian temple and so forth. Yeah. Now, now think about it, right? The planet that is getting exalted in Ashwini Nakshatra is basically Sun. One of the first things. Now, Sun is the first planet in your chart. You have to be looking at Sun, the first planet. Now, of course, and first planet is getting exalted in a flag connector, Nakshatra of Ashwini. So very important festivals, important energies are always awakened through the means of Ketu rule Nakshatra, which is basically Ashwini here. So you can see the Ashwini Nakshatra energy is basically present in the flag hosting ceremony, because Ketu again, remember, is contour heights. Ketu is also flags. You can see that. And Sun exaltation energies of Ashwini comes through immediately. And from that point on, the gods are welcomed and so forth. That's something you can see. And remember, Ashwini Nakshatra is also the nakshatra associated with Mool Trikon portion of Mars. Now, Mars is the soldier, Mars is the security guard. And that's exactly what you find here with the other flag here on top of the Sudarshan Chakra on top of the Jagannath Puri temple. So you have a Martian kind of element with flags also. When you see a flag, you can recognize there are soldiers there. It's as simple as that, right? Something similar is also happening.
And horses.
It's a very important, and horses, yeah, definitely. Yeah, for soldiers and horses, definitely. Let's see.
Horsepower.
Right. Now, here is one interesting way to think about Ketu as well. Now, remember flags are actually associated with Ketu. Now, each of the Hindu deities, they have their own flags. Now, here I'm just gonna introduce some flags, and if you recognize some of the flags, Katya, you can just jump in. You can just jump in before.
Let's see.
Now, this is the flag of a rooster. Now, which deity do you think is associated with the flag of the rooster?
Oh, the rooster.
Well, the answer is actually going to be Kartikeya. Kartikeya is the commander in general of the entire divine army, of the Devas. The young god who carries the flag of the rooster is literally the carrying the commander in general staff, the scepter of command or scepter of power, really, for the entire divine army. So it's very interesting. Now, rooster, remember, is the bird that crows in the morning and so forth, right? That you wake up in the morning and so forth. Sometimes it's rooster, sometimes it's birds. But yeah, especially in villages and so forth, where you find roosters, farmland and so forth, it's very natural to hear the sound of the rooster. No, in fact, sun, Kartika is definitely representing the hidden energy and vitality of sun also, the morning sun, the morning rays and so forth. That's a hidden thing. Now, which deity is carrying the flag of the bull? Do you know which deity is associated with the flag of the bull?
A bull. Mrigashi would be deer.
Yeah, Mriksha is deer, but you're close to that. And the answer is actually Shiva. Shiva is the actual god whose mount is a bull. Nandi is the bull who is the mount of Shiva. Okay. And so is his flag also. So it's very interesting that for Shiva, his flag and his mount are of the same animals.
And Parvati rides the bull too, right?
Parvati joins Shiva in riding the bull in the combined manifestation. That's right. When in the wife manifestation of Parvati, it is true. Now, what about the flag of the eagle? Which god would be having the flag of the eagle? I can give you one more clue. The flag is that the eagle is called as Garuda. That is the clue. Well, Garuda is basically linked with Vishnu actually. Vishnu is actually having the mount of Garuda, and in fact his flag is also Garuda. In fact, Garuda is the eagle. So Vishnu actually rides the eagle. In fact, there are rituals in which you actually begin to see eagles to conclude a ritual. You have to go out and see the eagle flying, things like that, and so forth. So eagle is definitely having an element of Garuda or Vishnu also. Now, what about the flag of the swan? Which deity should be having the flag of the swan then? Well,
Swati.
the answer, Swati, well, it's not bad guess because the actual deity is Brahma. Brahma is the one who actually has the flag of this one. Remember, Brahma is Prajapati, the creator of the universe. So we just talked about him. Now, the flag of the elephant is basically carried by Indra, the god of the elder god, the eldest one we talked about. The flag of peacock is actually associated
Krishna.
with goddess. Well, peacock, you are right in peacock feather in being a decorative element in Krishna. That is very true.
Saraswati.
Uh, well, Saraswati is one bit. The answer actually is the goddess Durga. Now, they are very interesting. Remember, goddess Durga rides a lion, but her flag is that of a peacock. So there's a very interesting kind of a thing going on here. There are very specific kind of consciousness which these gods and goddesses are riding on. Now, the gods riding on a consciousness or the mount on a consciousness is different. The gods carrying the flag of a consciousness of a particular animal energy is also different. So that's a way to think about it.
Yeah.
Now, finally, you have one other flag, which is that of the palm trees, which is actually linked with Balram. Now, his flag is actually a palm tree. So it's a very interesting thing to think about because Balram. Now, palm tree is very interesting because a palm tree is associated with dates, right? So you get dates from palms and so forth. Now, Balram is actually associated with Mercury in the South Indian astrological world and so forth. So you kind of see this interesting, and dates can be associated with Rahu also. So you kind of see this interesting link between Rahu and Mercury, at least at the flag level through Balram and so forth. So it's a very interesting kind of thing to consider. Now again, these are very these might appear esoteric, but these gods and goddesses are very, very powerful ways to control and understand your Ketu energies. Now, if you have a planet, understanding your Ketu correspondingly. Now, in fact, it's a very simple remedy for Ketu to donate flags for your problem. So a festival is happening, there are a lot of flags in a festival, you donate flags to a temple as a remedy for Ketu. Now, this can be any kind of flag. Now, you can even donate a flag, for the patriots or, for anything. It can be, you can just donate flags away. It's a very powerful remedy for Ketu. It's an easy way to pacify your Ketu and so forth, honoring and giving flags. Now, in some cases, you'll begin to see if you put flags on top and so forth, that can actually help you out. Now, most of the time, you'll begin to see that people who have a fascination with flag, there's very good chance that they have a Ketu thing going on. That's the other aspect. They have a flag on their bedroom, or they have a flag in their living room or whatnot. There's a Ketu kind of thing going on. That's one thing you begin to see also. And finally, there is this one flag of Hanuman, which was actually carried by Arjuna in the battle of Mahabharata. So, Hanuman is also the flag, which is very interesting. And each flag is also pointing to the deity or the god that can actually protect you. That's also a very interesting thing also. So in so many cases, it's very common practice in India to actually donate flags of certain gods also. So donate a flag to a Hanuman temple, which is a remedy, the astrology would say. Donate the flag to a goddess temple, and depending upon what Ketu is doing in a chart, you appease that particular deity to get some more improvements and so forth. Now, like I said, the flag could also mean literally the actual flag of the country also, So the question is, what is the flag of a country telling you about its history and genealogy? Remember, Ketu is connected with past life. Past life is basically history. Your history as a soul. That's what a past life is. But it could also mean past life and past experiences in this lifetime also. That is also a possibility. A flag of a country, one way or the other, energetically will be linked with the history of the nation. It's just straightforward as that. The flags of the team which you support, one way or the other, is connected with the spirit energy of that particular team. One way or the other. It is definitely guaranteed. Now, Ketu is also the genes. Remember, you honor your ancestors from whose genes that you carry. So your genealogy can actually be understood through Ketu also. Now here, by looking at the flags, you can actually begin to understand a lot about the history and the genetic energies present in that particular country. Like for instance, the flag of Turkey is actually basically supposed to be the reflection of a moon and a star on a river of blood. So when a revolution happened, there was a river of blood happening, and then there was a reflection of the moon and star, which was actually captured. That is the essence of flag. Now, of course, Turkey is a very strong land with, very strong energies and so forth. You can begin to understand that easily. You can begin to understand it has a revolution kind of history there, going on. And of course, moon and star. Star is related with Venus, a lot of mystical arts there, a lot of dance kind of thing, very strong music kind of thing going on there, all that. With India, you can see the three colors and the chakra also. There's a lot of chakra is also coming from the Ashok pillar and pointing to this non-violent kind of energy carried by that particular emperor, Ashoka also. That's one aspect there. Of course, the Japanese flag, it's the rising sun. So, of course, they have a very pure solar kind of culture, very masculine kind of culture and so forth. Very land of the warriors, the land of the samurai, right? So that's what Japan is. So definitely a very strong warrior culture and so forth. And I think the flag of Brazil is definitely carrying a very interesting set of stars. I think it carries Pleiades and so forth, right? So if I'm not mistaken, there's this lot of Pleiades, a lot of
is that the
Pleiades?
Pleiades?
Yes, bunch of Pleiades here in.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so Brazil just did have that. Yeah, it's interesting. So there's Brazil. It'll be interesting. Well, I'm not aware about the deeper Brazilian history, but it'll be interesting to see that. To see stars in the Brazilian flag itself. In the flag itself is a very interesting thing what you're researching about also. Yeah, something to look more into also. Now this is the final slide, but here I have three pictures. I have a picture of a horse with Ashwini. I have the picture of a lion with Maga, and I have a picture of a woman with big hair. I don't know what that hairstyle is called. Right? Is it an afro? No, it's not an afro. Is it an afro? Okay, great. So it's an afro, yeah, great. So lady with an afro. Now the question here is that what is the connection between the horse and the lion? That's the question here. What do you think could be the connection? And the clue is the picture.
Leadership, strength, power, Shakti.
All that is true. All that is very good points. Now, the easiest link between the horse and the lion is its mane. Its mane, because the horse have a mane, the lion has a mane. And you'll begin to see that. Now, it's very interesting. Think about that, right? So horses actually have hair hanging out. It's a prominent feature of how you identify a horse. Yeah, we all have hairs hanging out also, right? So the lion also have a mane hanging out. Now, and the ancestors are actually called as manes. So remember that. So it is possible that your ancestors could be directly linked with your hair. It is possible.
Oh, they are definitely. I mean, I know mine are, but that's another story.
Yeah. But remember that. Now, in fact, it's a very powerful remedy. For instance, I normally share this particular remedy in my class and so forth. Like you can see, there was a shaman once recommended, a shaman in whom the goddess had entered. You burn the Ashwini tree's roots, the roots associated with the Ashwini tree, the wood associated with Ashwini tree. You burn that, create an ash, but you mix your hair of yourself and burn that thing. So then burning, you actually burn your hair along with the roots of the tree. Now that particular ash which you get is supposed to carry the protection energy of the ancestors. It's a very simple thing. It's a very powerful protective thing. But again, you can see the ancestral energy here. That is one thing going on here. That's the other aspect here. But like I said, Ketu root, and in fact, the other remedy I was told is that once you take a bath, not to dry your hair. So your water is actually there going to be on your hair. So don't dry your hair after you take a bath. So just let it be wet and carry that wet hair for some time, because that energy is going to help the ancestors the most. Apparently, that's the concept. So just keeping your hair wet even after 10 minutes, 15 minutes after you take bath is like a effective remedy for that. It's a very interesting thing. It was told to me by another friend of mine who was advised for this by a priest and so forth. It's a very simple thing, and that was the concept why I mean, for the early on Brahmins in North India, they just had a small tuft of hair here, and they would just keep that particular hair portion where it was easier. But whereas for normal folks, they have a lot of hair. Keeping it wet is not easy unless you train your body to be exposed to that and so forth. You know, it's one of those things.
My hair will frizz out if I do that, but it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for those who can try, I can definitely recommend these remedies. You know, definitely I can recommend. But here again,
about the hair, you know, in Native American folklore, we say that your hair is your telepathy. Your hair is your antenna. And that's very K2, because K2 is all about the psychic realm, you know, multi-dimensional.
Right. In fact, there is this story. There is this famous online article about some Native American trackers in the military. They were allowed to keep their hair. You know, so when they cut their hair, they realized that they couldn't track anymore.
That's right.
And then they were allowed to, okay, you know what, your group can actually keep their hair, your genetic group can keep your hair because you know how to use your, you know, genetic abilities.
The best trackers are Native American because they have long hair. And that's what I keep telling people. I'm like, the reason I have such long hair is because this helps my psychic abilities.
Yeah, so that's great. Very, very great. So, no, that's the thing, right? So here again, what have we done so far? We have journeyed purely through the Nakshatras, and we have actually understood a lot about Ketu just by examining the Nakshatras linked with Ketu. And when we begin to carefully observe where the actual significations of Ketu is playing out in the life, you begin to see the energies of the Nakshatras playing out also very simultaneously. That's what I demonstrated here. That's the way to think about it, you know. So again, here it's a very easy and powerful way to study all the planets. That's what I'm hoping to have passed on. This way of examining the planets through the nakshatras linked with it. It's a very
yes. I definitely have a much deeper understanding of K2 now. I hadn't thought about it, any of the grahas the way you've presented them. And one thing that strikes me at the end also is something that, you know, K2 is also likened to Neptune if you use the outer planets. But what I have discovered, because, you know, we have all these ideas, right? But they're only ideas until they work in somebody's chart and you see it happen in real life. And what I've discovered with my clients is that K2 represents, yes, it's your past life, it's the role you've played. But if you've not been here to this planet before, then it's the ancestors in your blood. It's the what we call the little people in your blood. It's your DNA. And Neptune more represents people, especially if, you know, Neptune is highlighted in a special place and special sign. I mean, it's usually pretty clear. 2nd house, 4th house, 11th house. Neptune there in spiritual places will show somebody who's a star seed, meaning somebody who is new to this planet. Doesn't mean that you haven't had lifetimes before. It just means that you're new here. And Neptune kind of really represents like who you are, your soul, without all of the trappings of your blood and your DNA. Neptune is just like the pure soul essence. And then K2 is kind of like the past lives of your blood, and also, you know, what roles you've played in past lives too. And you know, of course, you always have to take everything into consideration. You can't just generalize, but you know, this is what I've discovered in my readings. You know, people that have a very strong Neptune, a lot of times can't understand why they're here, or you know, what their role is here. Whereas people with a strong K2, yeah, they kind of really know what their role is. They might be lost. They might keep, you know, repeating the same mistakes, but they kind of know that, like you said, the flags, the the cultural territories that their family has played in is more familiar to them.
Yeah, definitely. Ketu, it's very interesting bit about Neptunes. It's something, outer planets are something worthy of research and so forth. That's very true. Yeah, with Ketu, definitely I can say it is going to be linked with your ancestors' history. In fact, you have a history thing going on there. It's many times when I see, when I talk with clients who are running Ketu time period or Ketu Dasha, I've seen that they have an element about them that's very instinctive. It's as if they are acting headlessly. And suddenly they find themselves being fascinated with topics out of nowhere and so forth. And then I tell them, this is something you already did in your past lives. This is something which your ancestors already did. And that's something exactly that you're going through again. So very interesting kind of a bit. It's a very powerful way to heal your past life karma. So there is an element of Ketu, which is actually, which is basically past life karma. Many times Ketu can bring about depression also. That's the other way to think about it. I cannot say that enough. So these nakshatras, though they are carrying its own power, it's having a pure depressive energy. The depression energy is also very important because you have to work through the depression energy. And many times, Ketu time period is when many people would actually work through with spiritual practices, like simple spiritual
Anxiety
practices
too.
like meditation. Yeah,
Moon
anxiety. Yeah,
Moon conjunct K2, massive anxiety. K2 on the ascendant, massive anxiety, especially if Pluto's there. Oh, yeah, I have family members like that. Let me tell you, it's it's a lot
definitely,
of anxiety. Yeah.
definitely.
Now, right
Definitely. I
now,
can say,
K2
yeah.
is in Scorpio. K2's in Jyeshtha right now, so it's exalted. So how do you see that exaltation being played out, like in real life?
Yeah, right now you do see a lot of military action, right? So, I mean, literally, you find the military in the US capital. Militaries were called to action when Ketu was in Mula, for instance, world over. So, you expect a lot of that, I can say that. And there is definitely, you mentioned about Antares being the fixed star associated with war and so forth. So, I think there might be some unexpected kind of action that could play out this upcoming year. Lot of action, lot of I think there's still a lot of surprises still waiting to erupt, in my opinion. Of course, but it's a very powerful time period to study the occult sciences. You couldn't ask for anything
And
more than that.
medicine. I mean, look what's happening with medicine and the vaccine. That's all very Scorpio.
Yeah, definitely. Lot of research. Very powerful time period for research. Very powerful time period to understand your past as well. Now, understanding. So now, many times you might feel depression energy, and it's not your energy per se. You are just feeling the depression energy coming from your ancestors. Now, then you're like, I mean, that's a real thing. You carry the genetic memory of your ancestors. It's true. The genetic emotional memory of your ancestors. Many natives could be actually finding their own history right now. That's the real way I would say. Understanding that a deeper history, and you might begin to understand some things very easily at that point. For instance, I've seen that when you begin to just look at the easiest thing you can do with Ketu is get a DNA test, find out the predominant groups of your DNA, track their history. What did this group do? So, okay, you carry Portuguese, but what did the Portuguese group do? Did they travel from like Portugal or Spain all the way to Brazil, and did they settle down there, or did they settle in Mexico? Was it a good area, bad area? What happened with the group? Find out the history. You begin to realize that there are some of the experiences you are going through are very much similar to what your ancestors would have gone through. It's almost like something similar is still playing out energetically. And of course, if you know astrology, you can be very specific about it. You look at Ketu and look at his house and look at the nakshatra science and all that. You can begin to understand more about that specific history of your ancestors. In fact, when you look at any chart, you should be able to predict what the grandfather did or what the grandparents did. just from that original chart, not your chart, because Rahu and Ketu are carrying the genetic history of your ancestors. By looking at Ketu in a chart, you can actually understand. Look, now the easiest way to understand past lives is just make Ketu as the ascendant and read the chart. That's it. You just make Ketu as the ascendant. Okay, Ketu is in, let's say, Leo, or you are into royalty. That kind of straightforward. You can just start forward from there. And then when you look at Ketu, look at Ketu's Lord. How many houses has it gone to? What sign has it gone to? Look at what Ketu is doing, with what nakshatra is going. How many houses has the nakshatra Lord gone to? All those gives you very easy clues to understand that. Now, in many cases, you'll begin to see that Ketu's nakshatra or placement is giving you the very immediately obvious past life that you can see. So, for instance, Ketu, say for instance, I remember one constellation I had, Ketu in Uttarashad Nakshatra. Uttarashad Nakshatra is a nakshatra associated with battles. And I said, okay, you must have had a battle kind of past life thing, in your past life. And then literally I need to say, yeah, I did my past life regression. I saw myself as a Sikh warrior in a battle, exactly that. So it's like you're going to see that kind of a thing going on. Ketu is really past life thing. Now, many times when any planet is interacting with your Ketu, many times, say you're talking with someone, their chart, look at any of their planets interacting with your Ketu in your natal chart. Then you can be sure that there's a past life connection that is still being maintained. It's a very simple way to check that. It's something I've realized. You can use it effectively and so forth also.
And also the moon chart, a lot of times we in the West forget
that's right.
that the Chandra Lagna is so important. It's just as important as your regular Lagna. And looking where Ketu is from your moon is very important. It for me in my chart, it unlocked a lot of things that I hadn't thought of before.
Yeah, definitely. Chandra Lagna is very, very important. You can understand Chandra Lagna as a technique to understand how the emotions will play out, how the emotional kind of world will play out for you. That is definitely a big aspect of our lives anyways. All planetary Lagnas have its own strength. Now looking at Ketu as a Lagna will purely tell you the past life kind of deal going on. That's a big clue I can share today. But yeah, so that's what I have, Katya.
So if you have a planet conjunct Ketu, and that would be on the Lagna for that chart, how would that play out?
Well, if you have a planet conjunct Ketu, you can immediately say you have mastered that particular planetary energies in a past lifetime, or that particular planet, people signifying that planet has been with you for multiple lifetimes together. That is one thing that you can immediately say. And then when a planet is conjunct Ketu, there is a tendency to be critical of that particular planet. Ketu is a planet of hypercriticism. So hypercritical, is the key word of Ketu. You might have this unnatural way to I don't want that particular planet energy. Because what has happened is that you have already mastered that planet. You already experienced what it has been, with that particular planet in your lifetimes here on this Earth Loka, in this Bhuloka. And then that's why you go towards Rahu. Now, many times you'll find that you always are naturally drawn to that planet with that Ketu. Instinctively, you find comfort being with that planet because you already know that you're safe and secure as far as the experiences in this Bhuloka is concerned. But Rahu is where you're going to find more thrill, more awakening, more raw energy, and so forth. That's the other aspect. Now, especially if it's on the Lagna, now the house where Ketu is sitting is very, very important. Because you already know, you're already comfortable with that particular house in your chart. If Ketu is on the Lagna, you're comfortable being by yourself. You don't need anything more and so forth. You'll be comfortable when you do so and so forth. When Ketu is in the fourth house, you're comfortable being the mom, being a homemaker, being in the home, comfortable being around family and so forth. Now, many times this particular thing, you'll always have to look at what other planets are influencing Ketu. Just like how Rahu is doing. If Ketu is with a malefic 100%, it might force that comfort might become a discomfort kind of energy. If Ketu is with a benefic, it might be like you might feel comfortable with that benefic kind of energy, that particular house also. It's a very important thing. With Lagna, usually these natives can be very psychic. And some of the psychic is, in fact, I usually say there is a goddess link with that particular deity, with that particular network. So whatever planet is conjunct Ketu, 100% you have worshipped that particular god or goddess for multiple lifetimes. I can say that for sure. No doubt about that. So you have Venus with Ketu, 100% you can say you have been a goddess worshipper for multiple lifetimes.
Maybe you're
Say
a Venus.
yeah, it is possible. Yeah, you might be coming from Venus as a planet. It's a possibility. Say you have Jupiter with Ketu, you could say you have a past life link with God Vishnu also, or a guru. For the gurus in your lifetime, there is a past life link with that particular guru. You could say so. Mars with Ketu, usually you might have been a soldier in a past lifetime, or a warrior. You might have worshipped a warrior god or a warrior goddess in a past lifetime. Mercury with Ketu is you might have worshipped Ganesha or a knowledge god, a god of knowledge in a past lifetime, or a goddess of knowledge even. Sun with Ketu, you might have been a worshipper of Shiva. That's what I would say. Or Shiva-like god, or a king of the gods kind of energy you might have worshipped. Moon with Ketu, you might have been a goddess worshipper. That's just straightforward, very easy on that front. Let's see. I think Saturn with Ketu, that's a very important thing. Saturn with Ketu is a very interesting kind of karma in which some of the stresses you carry is coming from past lifetime. I can say that. So it's something you need to be very aware about and so forth. There is a tendency to carry the past life things you worried about from past lifetime again in this lifetime. So you're unnaturally worried about, like, let's say, something simple. Am I going to have food tomorrow? But your fridge is stockpiled with food, right? That kind of thing. So it's like survival. Yeah, exactly. So you might have this kind of Saturn with Ketu is a very strong thing on that. Now, because of which they have a past life link, either with their gods worshipped by their ancestors. That's usually what I say with Saturn, or with a very dark goddess or a dark god. So dark goddess is basically Kali. Saturn with Ketu is usually a past life karma with goddess Kali, and that's what it used to be, that goddess Kali's help was sought to protect the ancestors. Now, usually Saturn with Ketu is slightly karmic. There's an actual karma to improve the ancestors, to work upon your ancestors, to send some healing energy to the ancestors and so forth. Saturn with Ketu is very, very strong, strong karma of the ancestors, no doubt about that. They actually have an unfulfilled karma to do with the ancestors, and they'll have to do that also. One way or the other, they'll do that kind of thing. Now, that's why the ancestral altar kind of thing, which I started off early on, is very, very powerful. When you have that going on, you'll begin to see a lot of improvements happening slowly and slowly. It's one of those things that I see. That's very, very powerful as well. But yeah, let's see. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, it's wonderful. Oh, I love everything you say. I mean, to me, it's like, it's magic, the way you put things together, because it's just things that, I haven't heard before and other people aren't teaching. And that's why I think, when I was studying Egyptian dance, it's very important you study with a native. And I feel like, for me as a Westerner, it's very important I study with somebody from India, because you hold the folklore that you grew up with. We can try all we want, but we Westerners will never understand it because we didn't grow up with it, And so that's why I'm so grateful for people that are willing to take their time and explain things, to us so that we can understand, because these are universal truths that apply to every human. It's just India happens to be very special in that they've been recording these for a long time. So I'm so grateful that you are willing to come and share your knowledge with us and your wisdom. And thank you so much for doing the Nakshatras through the Graha series. And stay tuned, you guys, because we have some new things coming up. We will divulge them later once things are rolling a little bit more, but you can be sure that by March you'll be hearing something. And until then, I will be hunkering down and working on things. And I'm taking like a little sabbatical from writing transit posts, long ones, like I'll write little ones for Instagram and stuff. But until, everything is underway with our project, I'll be working hard. So thank you so much, Santhip, for joining me and enlightening us all to your knowledge. And we'll see you next time.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah.
Hari Om.